Good morning, gentlemen. I'm back for another session of my channel, and I hope I'm going to get your attention. I'm today going to talk on a very important topic, and that is Ukraine. Ukraine has got the imagination of the world because it is a tinderbox which can lead to World War III. So where are we now there? Let's examine the issue. The first thing, let's be very clear, is that the Russian advance in the eastern region is a success. They are moving forward. As by my reports, they are only 75 miles from Odessa, the main city of Ukraine, on the Baltic Sea, and on the Black Sea, and also nearing the city of Kharkiv, which they are pounding regularly. So the Russians have occupied almost about 35 to 40% of eastern Ukraine, and that's a lot of territory. But then the fighting has gone on for over 3 months. That also is a fact. And the success has not been commensurate with the effort. But finally, after 2 months of heavy fighting, the clock is turning in favor of the Russians. Now that's a crucial point. And the Russians are moving ahead. Another important point is that the EU sanctions and the sanctions by Joe Biden and his sidekick Johnson have failed. The ruble is strong. Russia said nothing doing, we are not going to give up. And these countries have been supplying weapons to Ukraine, millions of dollars worth of them. But then giving a weapon itself has got no meaning unless you know how to use it. You know what happened in 1965. The Pakistan army had the most modern pattern tanks with night vision, and they failed when they faced the Indian vintage tanks of the Sherman and the AMX, because the Pakistani crew were not commensurate how to use them, what to do with such a sophisticated weapon. And this is what is happening with Ukraine. They are not knowing what exactly to do with the sophisticated weapons which they are getting, and they haven't been able to do anything. They have lost vast areas, and Ukraine has become a wasteland. I won't understand what Zelensky has been planning. 7 million refugees, country destroyed, granary of Europe finished, and Europe is going to take a long time before they can really take it back into the EU or help Ukraine on its feet. I don't know whether Ukraine will ever get back on its feet, first of all. The situation is very grim at the moment, and Johnson and Biden are not realizing it. Maybe they are realizing it, but they think that, well, they might get away with it. Now, the latest provocation, which you all know, is that one of the Baltic republics has stopped the access of Russia to the enclave in Kaliningrad. That's a serious matter. The Russians have not liked it, and obviously the Russians have threatened that they will take action. And action means not a handshake or something like that or a pat, it means a slap. And a slap in the modern world could be a nuclear war. Now, if you remember, in 1960 there was the U-2 spy incident when an American spy, Captain Gary Paz, was shot down over Russia, and that time Khrushchev was infuriated. He was the first secretary of the Soviet Communist Party, and he said, what did he say? He said, I need just 5 or 6 H-bombs and England will cease to exist from the world map. I think that time the Prime Minister was Harold Macmillan, and he realized the gravity of the situation. The things were toned down then. So that statement still stands, and I'm really worried for the small European nations like Belgium, Denmark. These are the ones who are most vociferous against Russia. They are the ones who are shouting the most from the rooftops, and these are the countries which will just cease to exist in a nuclear exchange. I wonder if their leadership realizes it. Absolutely. They must realize that a nuclear war is not a child's play. The Russians are winning in the Donbass region. A lot of area they have occupied, and once they capture Odessa and Kharkiv, the Ukrainian and Zelensky's goose will be cooked. What are the Americans and Johnson going to do it then? But Russians must be very careful that they do not savor a Pyrrhic victory like what England did during the Second World War. They defeated Hitler, but within 2 years from Great Britain, they became Little Britain. They had to relinquish their empire. They just had to run away. The empire was finished within 2 years. That's a historical thing. An empire was going on for 200 years, collapsed within 2 years. So Russians got to be very careful. You don't want to win in Ukraine and destroy yourself. So they have to move faster. And at the moment it looks a little dicey for the Russians because many of the top generals have been killed, which itself is not a good sign, because it means there doesn't seem to be that much motivation in the Russian army, where it is necessary for the generals to be on the front line. But all said and done, they have a very superior firepower, and even the Baltic states are really getting worried. Recently the Russians carried out an exercise over one of the smaller states of Baltic states, and their helicopters flew with impunity over those areas, and the Americans did nothing. So if you think if these countries think the Americans are going to come and fight for them and then throw in their troops and nuclear weapons and all that, it's not going to happen. I mean, these people should realize, instead of just provoking Russia by stopping the trains to Kaliningrad and all that, it doesn't lead anywhere. One should avoid all this thing. Now, Ukraine is a test case for NATO also, for the reason for its existence. The Americans are trying their level best to keep NATO relevant, because their earlier pacts, Baghdad Pact, have you heard about it now? No. Seattle, where it is? No. CENTO, nothing, nowhere. NATO would also have gone the same way, but they had created an enemy. They said, oh, Russia is the enemy. And this is the reason NATO is existing. An imaginary enemy has been created so that the British and the Americans, that is the Anglo-Saxons, can keep their hegemony over Europe. The French have seen through the game, but then even Macron, his hands are tied. He lost majority in parliament. So we don't know what's going to happen. One thing is very clear. Europe is fighting with fire, fighting for its survival. I don't know whether the leadership realizes it, but Ukraine is a very, very small incident in this entire scenario. If I were a European leader, I would have made an accommodation with Russia on Ukraine. Forget about Ukraine, because basically Ukraine has always been in the Russian sphere of influence. Was it ever in the influence of the United States or UK? Never. It's been part of the history. It's part of a historical process. It's been close to the Russian Republic forever. It was a part of the Soviet Union for about 70 years. Many important leaders and generals from Ukraine were members of the Supreme Soviet. I mean, you can't just brush everything away and say, no, we don't believe in it, and everything is all honky-dory. It's not like that. But that requires a statesman, and I don't think Biden has that capability. If he had the capability, he would have nipped this Ukraine problem in the bud itself. He was the man who egged on Ukraine to fight. And now Ukraine, by listening to Mr. Biden, they lost 35 to 40% of their territory, thousands of soldiers are killed, and their economy destroyed. The Russians are moving in, they are going to capture Odessa and Kharkov. As I just told you, they're just 75 miles from Odessa, and once that happens, what are Zelensky going to do? I have no hesitation stating that Zelensky is a war criminal. Who is a war criminal? War criminal is one who provokes an unsolicited war, and this is what he did. If you go through the various American commentators on the subject, they also say the same thing. He thought he's going to be the big man, opposing Russia. He would be the flag bearer of the Western powers against Russia, and he'd be the hero. But it didn't turn out that way. He's now in hiding here and there in Kiev, surrounded by bodyguards, because there are many Ukrainians who would like to get rid of this man, In any case, he's not a knight in shining armor. His name features in the Panama Papers. He's salted away millions of dollars, in UK, in the Leeward Islands, Windward Islands. He's done all that thing. He's ensured that he's safe. Well, I'm not interested. He can go and do anything. But I'm interested when the country is heading towards World War III. And Khrushchev's words are very prophetic. One shouldn't think that everything's going to be easy. And God forbid, a nuclear exchange takes place. I hope they go by what Sun Tzu has written, that is, a general and a leader has to be realistic. The European powers have to be realistic. They don't have to go around living in a dream world, that the US is going to come, Uncle Sam will come, and Uncle Sam not going to come. Uncle Sam dropped General Chiang Kai-shek like a hot potato in 72, after he was there alive for 40 years. You think you're going to stand behind Taiwan? You think the man is going to fight for Japan? They're going to send their troops there? First of all, they don't have the troops. They don't have the manpower. They got sophisticated weaponry. That doesn't win wars. Field Marshal Montgomery, the great general, said, you need the infantry soldier to hold the ground. Despite all the talk people are talking, it's going to be a nuclear war, or it's going to be a robotic war. You need the soldier to hold the ground, the infantry soldier. The Americans don't have that much of infantry. Neither the gumption nor the courage to keep on fighting. They wouldn't have run away from Afghanistan or Vietnam or Iraq. Iraq, no American can walk the streets of Iraq alone. He get killed. Gentlemen, we are at a very interesting stage in world history, and I hope sanity prevails. That is the most important thing. Sanity prevails and realism dawns. And what is that realism? As Donald Trump said, NATO is an obsolete organization. Forget about it. Don't create Russia an enemy. And if there is an enemy of the Americans, it is only China. But somebody's got to see through this whole thing. I wonder who's going to see through it. And if the war continues, Ukraine will be ravaged. It will become a part of Russia, at least a portion of it. And that will be the end also of the small Baltic republics which are chirping the most. Gentlemen, I hope we come to the end of the video. Sanity prevails. There is no war. But war doesn't wait. It comes by a combination of circumstances. I close now, gentlemen, and hope you have listened to my thoughts. If you like what I've said, please subscribe and share, and thank you very much. Jai Hind.